Well, good morning, everyone. I appreciate everybody joining us today. My name's Ed Stone. I am the long-term care specialist here at First American Insurance Underwriters. We greatly appreciate your business to start off with, of course, and we're here to help you in any way we can. We're going to talk today about a subject that's near and dear to my heart, and I think you'll see why as we get into this. It's a little bit of housekeeping. Everybody is on mute. If you have a question or comment while I'm going through the presentation, just please type it in the chat box, and my wonderful marketing guru, Jess Geyer, will be looking at those. And if she sees something real urgent, because I'm not able to do two things at once, she'll let me know to address the comment. But otherwise, when we get to the end, we'll address all comments that are in the chat box or questions. We'll also have this recorded so that when you can't get to sleep at night, you could listen to it, and I guarantee it'll put you to sleep. No, seriously, this will be available to you, and we'll send out the PowerPoint as well. So that's some of the kind of the do's and don'ts, the housekeeping. We do have 4 of these sessions coming up this month. This is the first one on kind of how to have the conversation, et cetera. Next Tuesday, they're all at 11 o'clock Eastern time. Next Tuesday, we're going to have a gentleman, one of the underwriters from One America, one of our primary long-term care companies. He and I are going to have kind of you can call it a fireside chat. It's not going to be a presentation per se. He and I are going to discuss the critical issues in long-term care underwriting. We're going to emphasize a lot about field underwriting, et cetera. So please join us for that one, because as I always say, all the money, desire, motivation in the world to have a plan in place isn't going to do us any good if we can't get your clients through underwriting. The following week, we're going to dive into some products. Now, it's not going to be a product dump. So if you hate to go to these meetings and they go through every single little part of a policy, that's not the point of this. We're only doing this for half an hour so that hopefully folks will stay awake. That's going to be the types of products out there and how I would position them after you've gone through the 2 things, the first 2 ones, how to have the conversation, uncover the issues, uncover the underwriting issues. Then we're going to look at the solutions that we would maybe look at. So that'll be the 3rd one. The 4th one, I think, is going to be the most interesting. Maybe not, but I like it. It's talking about how to do virtual seminars. One of the things that's come out of this whole pandemic, I'll talk about a couple things in a second, is that people are becoming more comfortable with this medium that we're in right now. And it used to be that you had to have, lots of money to have, restaurants and things like that. I've done over the past year, probably 100 webcasts with clients where the agent brings their clients on, and we go through pretty much what you're going to hear here today to help them understand why they need to have a conversation. So that'll be the 4th one. So, bookmark it on your calendars. Please try and join us so that it's live and you hear what's going on right then. Of course, if you don't make it, if you've registered, we'll get you the PowerPoints and you can reach out to me and I'll be happy to even go over it individually. So that's kind of where we are today. Let's get started. Trusted advisor, having a conversation that's collaborative rather than confrontational. What do I mean by that? Well, let's talk about the market and what's out there. Who should you be having these conversations with? I've been doing this 30 plus years, folks. I was an RVP with several of the carriers who are now out of the business. So I guess that shows my talents. And, I always said to agents, they would say to me, well, who should I talk to about this, Ed? It's real simple. Anybody over age 40 is a target for this. And I'll say that for 2 reasons. One, as they get into their 40s and their 50s, the average issue age is about 57. That's industry average, but doesn't mean a 40-year-old can't have this conversation. As you start having these conversations with people, you're going to find that there's a lot of misconceptions out there about it. So we're looking at people 40 years old and above. One other reason you should be having these conversations with any of your clients 40 and above is to protect your practice. There are way too many, no offense to attorneys, I'm named after one. There's way too many attorneys out there looking for work. And if you don't have this conversation with your clients, something happens down the line and you can't document that you at least had the conversation and tried, sent some quotes or whatever, you're going to have a pretty flimsy case in your E&O court. Because especially if you're calling yourself a financial advisor, risk manager, et cetera, they may not realize it, that they need to have the conversation. You know you need to have the conversation. Their kids won't be them. It'll be their kids or grandkids that are going to come to you asking, why didn't you talk to this with my mom or dad or my grandma and grandpa? They just spent $600,000 of my inheritance on this where they could have insured it. You're going to get sued. It's happened. It happened in the DI world when I was a DI wholesaler. It happens all the time. And you see the TV ads all the time. So protect your practice. Have this conversation. If you're not comfortable having the conversation, bring me on. That's one of the things I stress to people. I do this all the time. Client advisor joint calls. Nobody says you got to be an expert at everything. Be a quarterback, hand it off to, the person that, throw the pass to the outside person, hand it off to the running back. Let me do the hard blocking and tackling for you. So the market is there. Another question I get all the time is, well, gee, Ed, who should I be targeting financially? I've got clients that are uber wealthy. They got bazillion dollars. They're very wealthy. They have $3 million in their estate, $10 million in their estate. Should they be looking at, long-term care insurance, no matter what the product is? Should they be looking at it? My answer is absolutely. Wealthy people understand, risk sharing, leveraging their money. We know we can't really document it due to HIPAA and that sort of thing, but we know two extremely wealthy people in this world own long-term care, and they've owned it for a long time. One of them is a big financial advisor out in Omaha, Nebraska. His cousin's a rock and roll singer. You might know who I'm talking about. The other one is somebody who started this computer company up in Seattle. He opened the gates to the insurance industry having computers. Wink, wink. We know that these guys own long-term care, and you wonder why. They could probably buy a couple nursing homes, right? Or 24/7, 365 care at home. But when you ask extremely wealthy people why they buy insurance, they're telling you it's a leverage play. They're spending $1 to get many, pennies on the dollar. We talk about that in life insurance planning, right? Spend pennies to get dollars. Long-term care is no different. It's the same type of concept. Now, somebody who is, borderline, probably can't afford the premiums, and probably would be a candidate at some point for, Medicaid, for government programs. But you've got a wide range of people out there to talk to. Less than 10% of the population that are that are likely to need this type, less than 10% of them have long-term care in place, be it a traditional or linked benefit, an annuity product, a rider on a life insurance policy, et cetera. So we haven't saturated the market yet, folks. There's plenty of opportunities, both in the individual and in the business market. Now, we had to cut one of our meetings short due to the calendar and all, but there's a whole market out there if you have business owner clients. If you have a business owner client, doesn't matter C Corp, non-C, whatever, please come to me. Let me educate you and help you talk to them about how they can use corporate money to pay for their personal long-term care for themselves and key executives in their company. It's a whole nother market that's out there. It ends up being the same conversation we're having here, but how you get to that market's a little different. So again, if you have any business owners or executives in companies, please reach out to me. You see my contact information there on the screen. I'll be happy in about 20 minutes to help you understand how that particular concept works, no matter what the product, no matter what the corporate structure. This is also a great way to get in front of accounting firms. For many years, I've done presentations on how to educate accountants into letting you partner with them. And there's ways you can approach them that won't work, and there's ways to approach the accountants that will work. So again, let me be the person that helps you with that type of situation, okay? Finally, should somebody buy a small long-term care policy or a big long-term care policy? Well, clearly, if you have the wherewithal to put the entire risk off on an insurance company, great. Most people can't afford the premiums to cover the risk that's out there now. 25 years ago, that stuff was dirt cheap, et cetera, et cetera. You could fully insure the problem. So today we're doing more cost sharing type of planning. Your risk is $500,000. You could afford to self-insure 300,000 of that or 200,000 of that. We're going to offload to the insurance carrier the balance of this. So it's a cost sharing type of situation. But what I will tell you from personal experience working for the carriers is this, and keep this in mind, because having these conversations is the way I'm going to go at it today is totally different than probably what you've been doing in before, and it's really a personal situation. And here's what I'm trying to get at. I used to spend time in the claims departments when I go into the home office, and I'd listen to the calls, and inevitably the calls would start something like this. Gee, XYZ company, we sure wish we're calling about my dad's policy. We sure wish he had bought more than this, $100 a day thing that he's got. But I want to tell you that this $100 a day, this $3,000 a month, that's a difference between one of us quitting our jobs to stay home with him and being able for us both to work and have somebody there to watch dad during the day. Folks, half a loaf is better than no loaf. You may not get totally full, but a half a loaf is going to give your clients something that their families are going to appreciate. So hopefully in this short 5-6 minute kind of overview, you've seen that it's a conversation you need to have for your purposes and your clients' purposes. You've started to see the people we're looking at, in terms of demographics. Now comes the whole realization issue. Why is it so difficult to have this conversation? Well, I think the general public has perceived this as nursing home insurance. Well, guess what? We're in the midst, or we're hopefully at the tail end of this pandemic that we've all suffered through. There is something good that's come out of it, believe it or not. There's a couple things good that's come out of it. But one of the things is we've noticed from a lot of surveys done over the last 6 to 8 months that during the height of the pandemic, interest in life insurance accelerated. Well, that makes sense. We were seeing, hundreds and thousands of people dying every day from contracting COVID. So people were starting to say, well, geez, I'm perfectly healthy, but Bob down the street looked like he was healthy and, he got COVID and passed away. I better talk to my advisor about making sure my life insurance is in good shape. And that's been great. We've seen according to LIMRA, we've seen spikes in the life insurance sales over the last year because people are starting to realize it. Right behind that is the whole issue of morbidity. Now, the public doesn't call it morbidity, but you and I know we're talking about disability, either disability income for the younger people to protect their paycheck. But what we're seeing is a pretty significant spike in requests for information about long-term care coverages. Why? Nobody wanted to go to a nursing home before COVID. Believe me, nobody wants to go to a nursing home now, right? So people are saying, is there some way that I can prepare in case I were to get sick from COVID or something else and ended up needing longer periods of care? Is there some way I can stay out of the nursing homes? And you're going to say, absolutely, I've got the solution for you. So yeah, we're trying to make some lemonade out of the lemons, but believe me, right now is a great time to have these conversations. On that same note, from a calendar standpoint, right now, November is a perfect time to start these conversations. You're probably not going to get very far with them right now because as we get a couple more weeks into the month, what are we starting? The holidays. And so people will get back to you. They'll say, Ed, this sounds good. And, the ideas, this collaborative conversation, I'm going to help you learn how to do here in a second. Sounds good, but could we get together, after the holidays, after the first of the year? Your response? Absolutely. I hope that nothing happens to you in terms of your health, but absolutely we can get together after the holidays. What month do you think is one of the biggest sales months for long-term care insurance? Think about it for a second. It's January into early February. Why? What did people just suffer through? I'm about to suffer through with my family. What did people suffer through from November through December into January? Family dinners, holiday parties, the whole thing of your family. And they're sitting across the table, sitting around the living room, looking at their potential caregivers. They're looking at their 27-year-old son or daughter with the nose ring and the purple hair thinking, that's our potential caregiver. Wait a second. Ed was talking about this stuff back in October, November. I'm going to give him a call. So if you get people interested today in the month of November, you're going to have plenty of opportunity in January to have these long range or these involved conversations. So don't think you can't have it now. You may not get very far, but you're definitely going to get an opportunity in January to circle back. How are your holidays, Bob? Oh man, I was with my family. Oh my God. Well, did you think about what we talked about back in October, November about, some extended care planning? Yeah, now that I think, yeah, maybe we better have this conversation. Okay. Utilize psychology, utilize the psychology of family dynamics, and you'll get very far. Finally, my support. I am here at FAIU to help you all the way through this conversation. You don't have to be an expert. We'll make you an expert. If you need me holding your hand on joint calls, on opportunities to, create quotes and things, I can do all that. But the real value is if you want me by your side with your clients on a call, I'll walk them through everything. Now, I'm not going to dive real deep into the products. That's kind of get your job. But I will go over quotes and things like that. But I want them to understand what they think is an answer is really not an answer. So feel free to reach out to me. I'll be happy to train anybody on this call in depth in terms of what we do here to support you at First American and what I can do as well. Okay, all of that said, how do you have these conversations with your clients? Let's see, there we go. First of all, we got to make sure that they're healthy. So I'm going to slip right past this screen because I just told you before, next week, we're going to dive real deep into this. But you've got to really get people to understand that this isn't life insurance underwriting. It's a little different. So keep that, join me next Tuesday, same time, same bat station, et cetera. And we'll go in depth with what underwriting is all about. But here's the easiest way to have this conversation started, a collaborative conversation as opposed to a confrontational. This is a quote from former First Lady Rosalind Carter, who said this 24 years ago. Yeah, 24 years ago. I've been using this quote ever since I stumbled on it back then. As she says, there's only 4 kinds of people in this world: those that have been, currently are, will be, or will need caregivers. Everybody on this phone falls into one of those categories. I've been a hands-on caregiver. My hand would go up if I was asked that question. Mom and dad lived with us for 5 years. I took care of a brother. I've been hands-on, literally hands-on caregiver. Ask your clients, have you been a hands-on caregiver? No, but have you seen it? Yeah, I saw my aunt and uncle, that sort of thing, my mom and dad working with my grandparents. Anybody currently caregiving? My hand would go up. I got a daughter living with us again, one of those bounce back situations with some health issues. So I'll be caregiving there. And even though I know I look 25 on the call here, I'm a child of the Woodstock generation, like many of your clients. Things that we've done over our lives will require us to have some care. So I need care. I know I will need it. I have my plan in place, which brings me to this statement. And please don't take this wrong, folks. If you don't have long-term care in place, if you're of the age where it makes sense and you're insurable and you don't have it in place, you're going to have a really hard time convincing your clients of this. I'm not preaching here. I'm just saying your clients are going to say, when you learn how to have this conversation we're going through, they're going to come back and say, well, I never thought of it that way. What do you have, Ed? Well, I don't need this because I got this, this, and this. Credibility. You probably own life insurance if you're selling life insurance. You probably have mutual funds if you're a mutual funds advisor. You probably have annuities. You probably have had DI when it was appropriate. Don't talk about something if you don't believe in it enough to invest in it yourself. That's a big problem I run into a lot with agents that say, well, I don't sell it. Why not? Well, I just don't sell it. Do you have it? No, I don't need it. Well, tells me everything right there. They're not going to talk about something they don't believe in. In life insurance, we always talk about what? You're not in the life insurance business until you've delivered a death claim, and I've delivered way too many of them. That makes you understand it. Long-term care isn't that different. Now, I contend you can have the exact same conversation on long-term. I like to call it extended care because you say long-term care, people immediately think of what? Nursing homes, and it really isn't nursing home, which we'll talk about. I contend that you can have this same conversation with your clients that you would have for life insurance, for long-term extended care insurance. Why? Because it's not a conversation about nursing homes, et cetera. We'll get to that in a second. It's not a conversation that's confrontational. Now, the only thing we know 100% certain is what? At some point in time, you're going to die. So you can make the statement, Bob, Mary, you need life insurance because as far as we've figured it out so far, nobody gets out alive. So you ought to have life insurance, right? You can't come at long-term care planning or conversations with what I call a risk-based conversation. The worst thing you could do is say to your clients, you've got them in for an annual review or something, say, gee, Bob and Mary, you're 55 years old. And I read an article that said, if you two make it to 65, you have a 70% chance of needing some form of long-term care coverage, services in your life. What do you think about that? You just shot yourself in the foot, folks. Why? Because you predicted something that wasn't 100% certain. And I can tell you what's going to happen. You're going to say that to Bob and Mary's going to go, you know what Bob's going to do? Because men are idiots. Yeah, ladies, men are idiots when it comes to this subject. We all have a Superman complex, invincible, indestructible, got a big red S on my tights under my shirt, right? Men don't think they need that. You just gave them, by making that prediction and saying 70% chance, you just gave them a 30% window for them to say, I don't need this, Ed. Well, really, Bob, what's your plan? Oh, I got my plan in place. Really, what is it, Bob? I got the gun in the barn. I got the pills in the drawer, and I got the duct tape next to the garden hose in the garage by the exhaust pipe, Ed. I'm all set. Folks, I'm not making those up. People have said that. Men have said that to me. That is their plan. To which I would always say, gee, the biggest amount of claims are for cognitive issues. What if you're on your way out to the barn and by the time you get there, you forget what you were looking for? Or you got the gun and can't remember where the bullets are? Or you develop Parkinson's and that gun doesn't quite do the job and now you're disabled. Is that really a plan? Well, see, I set myself up for that resistance by predicting. What you need to start doing with your clients is stop predicting and start doing what I call consequential type of conversations. You talk with them about the commitments that they've made in their lives to their family. And you say, Bob and Mary, tell me about yourselves. Tell me what your plan, what your goals, your plans, your dreams are. Well, we live here in the Northeast. We'd like to have a place in Florida, for the winter time and for the kids to come down, grandkids come down. We'd like to travel with our grandkids. The heck with our kids. We don't care about them. They got their chance. We want to go. I got grandkids, trust me. We want to take them places. We want to set aside money for our grandkids just in case our kids aren't successful and they still want to go to college. All of these commitments, your clients will talk about them. They love to talk about what is important to them, right? Well, what you can do is say one simple question. Bob and Mary, that's amazing. You guys have really thought this out, and hopefully with our help of wealth accumulation and all, we can help you get there. But I really have just one real quick question. How would you feel if you couldn't keep those commitments? Now, when you ask that question, how would you feel if you couldn't keep those commitments? If you'll do something that you don't like doing, that just, zip it, shut up, they're going to look at each other and they'll eventually say something like, I kind of feel bad. I feel like I failed my family. Well, folks, there's a possibility they may need care. I will never predict that. You will never hear me with your clients say, you have a 70% chance it'll last this long. I'll never use that because I want to make sure they understand this is not a conversation about them. This is not a conversation about them needing care because they may need it. They may not. We don't know. We can't predict. My question is, this is about their family, the impact on their family of them not having a plan in place. And the consequences of not having a plan are twofold. One, what it does to the family, and two, what it does to you because you failed in the commitments because you had to spend that $500,000 that you earmarked for college for the grandkids. You had to spend that on some care because you thought you were invincible, indestructible, never going to happen. And you didn't have a plan. So stop focusing on the clients, focus on their families, because that's what gets them out of bed every morning, makes them fight the traffic, go to work, put up with all the nonsense so they can accumulate the wealth and have something that, as a legacy. This is different than risk-based. This is collaborative. When you have these collaborative conversations with your clients, they're going to feel as though they've bought into what's going on. The next thing I want you to stop doing is talking about nursing homes. Who wants to talk about nursing homes? But we all start off, Bob and Mary, it could be very expensive to be in a nursing home. No kidding, really, yeah. But I'm never going there, Ed. Fine. Let's talk about where they want their care, at home, right? We all want to be at home. That's where we want our care. We don't want to be in a nursing home. Maybe we can live with our kids and then we got to go to adult daycare because they can't stay home. Maybe we end up in an assisted living facility, what I call the communes of my generation. Approximately 75% of claims are for home care. So let's talk about what they want to talk about. You can't do the scare tactics anymore, folks. We tried that for 20 years. People, well, I'm not going to a nursing home. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. And you lose. Talk about anti-nursing home planning, because that's really what we're talking about here. Don't get involved with products. We'll talk about products in a couple of weeks. We'll talk about linked benefit versus traditional policies. We'll talk about the different types of policies. Just have the conversations around what they really need, and that is a solution. We'll talk about the Pension Protection Act and where that comes in to help us, with these types of conversations. We'll talk about annuities. We'll talk about all that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to slip past these and get down to what I want to do. We're just going to leave it at that, okay? I'm going to stop sharing my screen here because there's really nothing else to talk about that you need to see up there. What I want to do is have you understand that the way you go into this conversation, you're going to get 4 objections. Not going to happen to me. Never said it was. I can self-insure. Let's talk about self-insuring and the money that you got to use for this, what you would plan to, commitment, what you committed to using it for. The government's going to pay for it. Well, that's a whole nother conversation. Now, we all know about the Washington State program, and maybe you don't, but if you don't, call us and we'll tell you about it. There's a few government programs trying to get on the books that are, the government's going to pay for it. Yeah, okay. Well, how's that working out with the deficit, et cetera? No political conversations today allowed. But the point is, we can't afford to pay for everybody's long-term care. So private long-term care is going to be part of the conversation. There's still no question about it. And then finally, my family is going to be my caregiver. Let me give you the easiest way to shoot out of the saddle. My family is going to be my caregiver. When your client says to you, Ed, we've got a plan in place. Really, what's the plan? We've had the conversation with the kids, and they've agreed that if something were to happen to us, they're going to take care of us. And I would say to them, good, sounds like you don't have issues with your kids. They're willing to at least, did they put that in writing? Of course not, of course. Well, yeah, family's going to say that. But my question to you, and you write this down if you want to, it's real simple. When they say my family's going to be my caregiver, look them dead in the eye and say the following. Bob, Mary, I understand that. My question is simple. Do you want your family to care for you or about you? Do you want your family to care for you, which means getting my 93-year-old father out of bed, making sure that I didn't knock the catheter off, rolling him past what used to be my office, which is now their den. I'm out in the garage, literally, into a bathroom we had to remodel. He hasn't bathed in 3 or 4 days because I wasn't home. I got to get him undressed in the shower, get him cleaned up, top, bottom, front, and back, get him cleaned up in new clothes, roll him out for breakfast. That's me caring for my father. I'm proud to have done it. I'm glad I had the opportunity to be there. I don't wish it on any of my children. Do you want your family to care for you or care about you while they manage the care being given for you? That is a powerful question. When you ask it, family care for you or about you, you got to shut up and just look at them and play dumb, because they're going to think back on those holiday dinners, et cetera. They're going to think about the irresponsible children they have, and they're going to realize, yeah, that's not an option. It may happen, it may not. You can't self-insure this problem. And if you're very uber wealthy, why would you spend money on this when you can buy it with discounted dollars? The government is not going to be your caregiver. If you do end up on Medicaid, you're now a ward of the state and you have no freedom. And 4, your family, all good intentions, don't want to. So folks, we're at the bottom of the hour, the bottom of the half hour. I want you to start thinking about different ways of having these conversations. Get rid of the brochures. A brochure never sold a policy. And I wrote a lot of them when I was with the carrier. So believe me, I knew all the stuff to talk about, the way the product works and how much it's benefit. People don't care. You sell this with stories. This is a real story. And it's the exact same story you talk about with life insurance. Bob and Mary, what would be the consequences to your families and the commitments you made? You're 35 years old. What would be the consequences to your family and the commitments you made if you were suddenly to die? And you shut up and let them talk. They're now 65 years old, 30 years later. What would be the consequences to your family and the commitments you've been working so hard to fulfill for them if you were to, the heart attack fell short, the wreck didn't kill you, or, by the way, our biggest percentage of claims, you know what that is? Cognitive. It's a broken brain, not a broken hip. If something happened, if you learn to ask those questions and then just be quiet, they will tell you. Then at the end of the conversation, now that I understand what you're about, Bob and Mary, we work with a consulting firm. That's us. We're going to sit down with them. We're going to take all this information. We're going to come up with a couple of solutions. When we get back next week at Tuesday at 2 or Wednesday at 4, we're going to have this conversation, have a couple of solutions. We may have to adjust those solutions. That's code for premium up or down, right? But does that sound like a good way? Now, you just spent a half an hour them telling you everything about themselves. You didn't get into product. You didn't talk about linked benefit, asset-based, whatever, traditional. You listened to them. And then you said, I'm going to take this information and come back with some solutions. So they now have full ownership in what you bring back to them. The only adjustable thing is the premium. So it's a different way. I hope this half an hour has been helpful to you guys in terms of understanding the mistakes you've been making, understanding who to target, understanding how we at First American can help you support, your what you're doing. And, if you stay for the next 3 sessions, you'll understand how to do field underwriting, how to know the high level of product solutions out there and how to position those products in that initial conversation. And then, of course, if you want to go off and get your clients on one of these, either joining us for our ones that we'll have in the start of 2022, we'll be announcing that in the 4th webcast we do this month, or even having your own individual one. We're more than happy to do custom designed ones. Okay, so let's see, Jess, do we have any chat questions? Doesn't look like it.
I don't
Okay,
think
folks.
so. Just if people can put their email address in, if I message them, because some people I already had it. So I just want to make sure we have everyone's info so we can follow up with them.
Great. Folks, I really appreciate you taking a half an hour out here. Hopefully I've been able to pry a little bit of your feet in cement to get you into this marketplace, and to, if you're in it, to help you, get a little bit better pivot shot here. Thanks for your time. We look forward to talking to all of you. Tell your friends, your colleagues, your neighbors, anybody you know. Next week's a great chance to talk to some underwriters about how to get this stuff issued. Okay.